It is the Anfield Wrap with Neil Atkinson, John Gibbons, Colin Spreag, Joseph Pepper. I was worried about getting that one wrong. Got it right early
Disproportionately made up with yourself.
Oh God, I'm delighted. He's only said it about 10 seconds ago. I've just said it back to him, but I really feel as though it's a big win. I feel as though something's been nailed there quite early on. We are within, would you say, a stone's throw distance? Col, what's your stone throwing game like of the beach? Could you throw a stone to the beach from here?
On a good day, yeah.
On a good day with a strong wind behind you, it's quite it's a beautiful sunny day, Joe.
Yeah, I think maybe Tessa Sanderson could reach the beach, but that's about it.
80s athletic references and of course what the Anfield Wrap is all about. John Gibbons has been pulling the opening question together. It is from JR Coral 13 and he asks this: what's your hot dog game like? What is your hot dog game like? And I'm interested by this because I've got to be honest with you, for about 5 years I can only think of about 2 hot dogs that haven't fundamentally eventually disappointed me that I've had. And I think that I'm mostly getting it wrong. So I had an absolute cracker in Glastonbury, which was full of, which had chilli on top and was mostly eatable. I think one of the reasons I have an issue with hot dogs is because they either are a bit bland and a bit boring, or they end up with so much stuff on top to make them less bland and boring. But they become very, very difficult to eat. So, Col, what's your hot dog game like?
Distinctly average, I think. I'm predictable with my food. I like a nice big size hot dog, bit of flavour, some onions, relish, ketchup.
Okay,
that's all I need.
You're very much. That's quite the basic outlook that you've gone with there. But it might be the way to do it because I've got issues around it. Like for instance, I don't understand the pulled pork thing on hot dogs. John, what are you doing for me?
I'm the opposite to you. I've never had a bad hot dog. I don't think I love them. I love the really cheap, horrible ones that you buy from New York for $1 or whatever, and they look like they're gonna kill you. Yeah, I love them. I like the match day ones. Got a lot going for it. I think
it has got more going for it than people are letting on. Yeah. It's basically the only thing I'll buy inside the ground.
But I think your best one's just on a barbecue at home. So like you get really, really good sausages from the butchers. Made nice to get a baguette, butter the baguette so the butter don't melt when you put the sausages on, your own onions, ketchup, but so that's the best one I think. But in terms of out, I've got into chili dogs more. We go to Salt Dog Slims, which is a bar in Liverpool, quite a bit, me and my missus, for hot dogs and cocktails, and I always went basic like Col, and then she'd always get something elaborate and I'd always be a bit jealous when it came, so I'm starting to be a bit more adventurous.
Are you branching out, John?
Yeah, going into the chili dog genre more and more.
Okay, Joe?
I'm probably similar to John. I like the really kind of cheap, the ones with no meat content pretty much, but just slap a bit of ketchup on it. And I was just saying there is a place actually down the road from here that is a bratwurst restaurant, and it only serves hot dogs. So everything on the menu is like a different type of hot dog. But I've been there a couple of times, and all I've thought is, I'll go for the one that's the kind you get like in a caravan at a fairground in English countryside somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, right, we're going to work through the show. What we're going to discuss is the sign of Wijnaldum. Also with the 3-part interview that's come out with Jurgen Klopp, done by James Pearce. I suspect it wasn't 3 separate interviews. It's probably one long one and they've broken it up.
Do you know what to do in the echo?
Well, they know how to get numbers. Great set of lads. And then the next thing underneath that is the likely rasher departures that are coming and how the squad's shaping up. Also, we want to have a little conversation about what it means for Liverpool to come out here and the growth of football within the continental United States, all that sort of stuff. But we've done the opening question, we've got that out of the way for you now, so it's all football for the next hour or so. And so the first question, the first aspect, the thing we're going to talk about, Col, is the sign of Wijnaldum. It appeared to come together very, very quickly. It came from nowhere to a certain extent, but it was done, and so you get the impression that maybe people were thinking about it or working on it for a period of time.
You get that impression that it's been in the works, but at the same time it kind of half feels like it's come together as a result of maybe the Zielinski or the Who deal's not going through, so it's tough to know which way to look at it, and obviously we're looking at kind of multiple players for each position that we're after filling. The Wijnaldum one's an exciting one. He's obviously highlighted, Klopp's highlighted the versatility and the fact that he's clearly talented, gets a lot of goals, so it'll be interesting to see what comes of it.
There's something strange in it, Col, where we've done this before a couple of times, I think, in our recent sort of last 2-year history, where you mentioned Zielinski there, and you think that it might have been that, they couldn't make Zielinski happen, so they go after Wijnaldum, and yet Wijnaldum costs more. This is what, one of the strange patterns that have emerged over the last few years. Wijnaldum costs more, so normally you'd feel as though there's a hierarchy to this, and yet they've ended up with the footballer who, because basically the money they paid for Wijnaldum, I'm sure if they'd have been prepared to pay that for Zielinski, they'd have got him. So it just sort of makes me I'm just intrigued really. I'd rather have Wijnaldum off the basis of what of the limited I've seen of both players, but I'm intrigued by this pattern that sort of emerges at times.
I hope that's not an open-ended question for me to try and figure out the transfer workings of Liverpool.
Sort of was, Colin, yeah.
Hopefully you got all the answers.
I pass on this one. No, we seem to be fairly scatterbomb at times, and obviously, like I say, there's a lot of research gone into every player that we do end up signing, but I don't know, it's an interesting one. There's clearly been other players who are prioritised for that position, and we've not been able to get them for whatever reason. Maybe it's a case with the other guys of you don't want to overpay on the potential, so we don't want to spend the money that we spent on Wijnaldum on somebody who may or may not get to that level. We'd like to get the youngster and see if we can develop him exactly in our mould, but if we can't, then let's just spend a bit more money and get the guy who's already doing the numbers.
Yeah, it could be that. That's not a bad kind of somebody of it really, but it is something that's frustrated me, and I'd be interested to speak to someone about it if they were to be open about the process really, and whether it's it's a value thing, whether it's they've just got a certain amount that they believe each person is worth. But I remember seemed to start this a couple of years ago when they were bidding over Salah, and they wouldn't go to 12 million for Salah, and they were messing around, and his agent said, we just dragged out and out and out. And then in the end, Chelsea came in with the money and paid £12 million, and he went there. And then they immediately bid £15 for Colin, who played in the same position. And you're like, well, if he was second choice, why are you bidding more for him? And it didn't really make sense that, and they were direct kind of comparisons as well. I mean, it's a little bit. I think Zielinski and Wijnaldum, for me, look like different sorts of players, so maybe there's the different value aspects in there. But for Salah and Conor can do both wide forwards, and so it does kind of seem strange, and it gets into your mindset this idea that you worry about the obsession with value, and that's what the transfer committee seems to be all about. They put some numbers into a machine that says this is how much he's worth, and you won't pay a kind of penny more than that. And I think football's a little bit more complicated than that really, and I don't think you can necessarily get too hung up if he's the one you want, then you should be able to pay a couple of million more. And I've seen that with Chilwell as well. I mean, Chilwell, this is jumping ahead, so apologies everyone, but they didn't seem to be that far apart with Chilwell. To think, well, if he's the best left back out there and he's the one you want, then I think it seems to be caught up between 7 and 10 million, which doesn't seem like, considering they've just got 6 million for Brad Smith, it doesn't seem like I know they haven't got that then, but when you take into consideration the markets and where it is at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if we now end up spending more than £10 million on a left back. I don't know what you think, and then you think, well, why didn't we go for him in the first place then? If he's worth more than Chilwell, I don't know. I can't get my head around it.
Joe.
Yeah, it's like they're following an algorithm for buying players, and it's like they've decided what a player's value is ahead of time. And you do wonder whether it's something along the lines of, because every deal that you talk about, there's maybe an instance where you think, well, if you just go 3 or 4 million more, you're going to get that player.
Yeah.
But of course, if you do that on every deal, then that all could potentially add up to 1 or 2 players fewer that you can buy in a window. So I wonder whether that's part of it as well.
Because they didn't do that sometimes. For instance, last summer, Benteke was, he had the release clause. Villa was saying, where's the release clause? And maybe if Liverpool had gone all the way until the end of August and turned it into a big scene, they might have saved 5 or 6 million. But in that instance, they did, for better or worse. I'm not discussing the player, I'm discussing the purchase. They did just go, we'll just pay it. You feel as though they've done that with Mane.
Yeah.
You feel as though they've just gone, let's just get this one sorted because we want that. So you do wonder whether or not there is sort of a categorisation process that, and maybe if we're trying to look for sort of a consistent sort of logical rigidity to this, we're not going to find it, because some deals it'll just be let's just do it. Some deals it'll be we're prepared to be parsimonious on this one. What a left backs who can be bothered.
Yeah, it's pretty opaque, isn't it? And maybe with the case of Mane, it was something where he brings something specific that Klopp seems to really have keyed into and thinks that we're missing. There does seem to be a priority looking for athleticism, physicality, strength, speed, size. There's some combination of those, so maybe that's gone into the thinking with Wijnaldum as well, that he's a guarantee of some aspects of that you can bring in, and they probably changed their process on the fly.
I think that's a massive part of this one, Colin. I think that's sort of, he's looked at the versatility in the goal output, and he's referenced both when he's been speaking to James Pearce there. He's referenced that Wijnaldum can, he can play, and he said 5 or 6 different positions, depending on how you're breaking down sort of who does what, which can get a bit technical, which we're happy to do. But he's also mentioned sort of the goal output as well, and that's what he's been very explicit. This is what he was looking for with the Mane and Wijnaldum signings, was in his 5 behind the 1, however they get organised. In his 5 behind the 1, he wanted Liverpool to carry a lot more goal threat, and both of these players do that.
Yeah, what we're doing is we seem to be taking a kind of short-term fix to this problem. We're spending money on it. Would it be possible to get a better output from Henderson and from Can over time? Yes. Will he be able to bring a lot of them? Yes. But it might take another 8, 10, 12 months to get to that level. Now, with these signings, it could be a case of, for this year, we'll happily have Can and Henderson or Can and Milner, whoever it may be, just kind of sit at the base of the midfield. It could be Grujic in there as well. And let these guys who we know can produce at the top level, let those guys go and run riot whilst we develop the attacking instincts of the more slightly, more average attacking midfielders that we have.
It's interesting you mentioned Henderson there. I mean, I think in general, sort of when he's discussing goals, if there's 3 that need to step up, I think we would have the same conversations about Jordan Henderson the summer of 2015, wherein he got 6 in 37 in 14-15 league goals. He could do a little better with the opportunities that he's had. Doesn't have a ton of game time, as we know, last season. But for instance, there's the big miss away at United, when whether it's De Gea in his head or whatever, he's 7-8 yards out, and it's just put it in the back of the net. Jordan, don't mess about. And I think it's fair to say De Gea does get in players' heads. But Emre Can, we've talked on shows about, you see the quality that he's got. There should be, he should be returning around 1 in 5 from midfield. Lallana is the player that looks most vulnerable to the Mane signing. You feel as though that'll be a straight swap, and Lallana's not had the goal return, the output that they want either. So it is interesting that across the board there, you can anticipate where the manager feels as though. You're right to say, for instance, we all think that Henderson could kick on and have a 10-goal season, but we know that Wijnaldum's had 3 of them in his last 4. And it's the thinking and the knowing, isn't it, Colin? Yeah,
it's that kind of, it's that safety of having the assurance that, we may line up with Danny Ings or Divock Origi as that number 9. Let's say Sturridge is injured, because he probably is. We need to know that the guys behind him or outside of him can get the goals. And if you're going into a game with Henderson playing as the 8, you kind of box to boxer, and Lallana playing off one of the wings, Coutinho off the left possibly, there's not necessarily too many goals in that. Coutinho kind of scores in spells, 3 or 4 here and there, but he could go 6, 7, 8 games without a goal. Lallana, for all his kind of skill and technical ability, you'd put your house on him missing a chance as opposed to taking it. Henderson's, a lot of the time, he's the same. So, being able to kind of replicate the shape and replicate the tactical side of the game, but having more effective players in there, it's clearly what we're looking for going into this year.
There's the other thing, the way in which you've spoken about Wijnaldum, John, is in terms of making quick decisions. He's used that. The first thing that the lad's got speed, both speed with his feet and speed of thought. It's quite it's fascinating that it's this. It's not that he doesn't want Liverpool dwelling on anything. You get the impression that's what's coming through. That's what's been coming through in the pre-season games. When what we've seen, it's about not dwelling. You get on with your business. You're able to almost do it without thinking about it. It's just going to come, and you're going to decide what you do, and you do the next thing. You're moving on.
Yeah, that's the kind of main thing I took from what he was saying, is that he's very clear about how he fits into how he wants to play, which is playing at pace, and also someone who can hurt the opposition when they're not set. And I think that's going to be a big thing for Liverpool going into next season. Obviously, we know how much Klopp likes to press. We know how much he likes to play in transition, and doing that is effective with players who can release the ball quickly, who can create, who can be part of a team that creates a chance in 3 passes. And I think that's the kind of thing what he's looking to do. Really, I don't think you'll see him. You'll see him going for players, or necessarily picking players who are a little bit more patient in the approach. I think what he wants explosive attacking players, and I think that's seemingly why he really likes him. And it was interesting to see and hear him talking about Wijnaldum in that way, because I think the statistics out there, isn't there, that your best chance of scoring is within kind of 5-10 seconds of kind of getting the ball, really, because it's when the opposition aren't ready, you know. And we're going to get a lot of teams come to Anfield next year and park the bus and look to defend deep and look to frustrate. And if you've got players who can explode into action before they've had a chance to do that, then that's the kind of a way around it, and that's what seems to be Klopp's, what he thinks is the best way around it.
He also wants to fill space, I think, Colin. This is a big thing. He wants the idea that Sturridge, if we presume Sturridge is his first choice, insofar as he has first choices, it's something else he's talked about, we'll come on to in a minute. But if we presume that, you know, he's going to go with Sturridge, one of the things we've all noticed with Sturridge, and it was the case in 13-14 as well to a certain extent, is that he wants to come and get involved in the play and all that sort of stuff. What players like Wijnaldum, Mane and Firmino are all happy to do is go and fill the space that Sturridge leaves. Whereas, you know, you mentioned them before, Coutinho, Lallana. I think Henderson's an interesting one of this, because Henderson likes to do it as well. He likes to get beyond. It's just what he does when he gets there is the problematic part. But he's got the instinct to go and do it. But, you know, it is having that idea that, you know, Coutinho wants to look up and see options in front of him. But if he's going to do that and Sturridge is going to play, well, then other people have got to be the option as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And, you know, John mentioned there that the focus on the transition side of things, and when Klopp first came in, you know, there was a whole thing about the liking heavy metal football and this attacking chaos, you know, just bodies running everywhere, movement ahead of the ball, and it's important to understand that whilst it is kind of attacking chaos and it does look like it's very uncoordinated, it's actually the exact opposite. It's very kind of well planned, and these attacking, you know, the counter-attacking stuff, when you've won the ball, that transition, the kind of dispersal of players there, who goes where and who makes which run there, here and there and whatnot, and how we attack the space ahead of Sturridge when he drops in, how we get around the outside of Coutinho, that's all very well planned, so we're getting the players to buy into that, I think.
Well, that was what was interesting about Grudic's opening goal against Huddersfield, was it looks like it's just bodies in the box, and you could say, well, it's bodies in the box, but they're actually, everyone's made a different clever run. They've all, it isn't just that they've all, it's clearly been coached into them, hasn't it? The Grudic is the one who's arriving and coming in, is 15 yards out, you feel as though somebody else could fulfil that position. Mane's gone there, someone's dragged across the front. It isn't chaos, it's, this is what we want you to do. And I think that this is where, when he's talking about wanting time to work with them on the pitch, well, he's got them in a shape. He's had them working in shape all the way through last season. If you look at what we've done well, shape at times, the intensity to go and win it back, but what we haven't done well at times is attack well. Is attack in a manner that looks coordinated. Instead it's being Firmino, Sturridge, Coutinho do something really, really good. Whereas you are beginning to see, I think, in these pre-season games, yes, there's the paucity of the opposition, but you've actually seen that shape in the attacking third.
Yeah, I think over the past, you could go back 10 years and you could look at these Liverpool sides, and then how many times do you have your Steven Gerrard on the ball, your Coutinho on the ball with very little movement ahead of him, very few options, very few good options for them to slide a ball in or switch a play to the right kind of person and stuff like that. You spoke earlier about the speed of players like Mane and Wijnaldum, not in terms of physical speed, but in terms of the mental speed and the tactical speed, the technical speed as well, to get the ball, get it out of your feet and move the ball on quickly. And that's crucial at catching teams off balance as soon as you win it. Can you play that first pass forwards? Can it be a positive pass that breaks an opposition line to really start that counter attack? And we go back again and talk about Jordan Henderson. If we say that he's not going to be in that attacking line, that three behind the striker, if he's playing as one of the two central midfielders, that for me becomes a little bit of a concern, because he doesn't have the technical speed to receive on the turn and fire that ball into your attacking mid or into your striker. Milner is similar, he's a little bit better at it, but now we've got the guys in the final third making the runs, and this is well coordinated. Yeah. How well do you think we'll be able to get the ball from that transition or from our defenders circulated through the holding mids and into those attackers?
I think it's. I think this is going to become almost that challenge is going to become the defining part of the season for me, Joe. Is Liverpool, firstly, the contribution from the central midfielders, and both in terms of them getting on the end of things, because I think we can say with a certain amount of assurance that if Mane plays 30 games, he'll get somewhere near 10 goals. I think we can say that we can have that sort of awareness, and it's Emre Can and Henderson. Possibly Milner as well, depending on how he sets up, Grudic if he throws him in. But it's how these lads perform, which I think will now sort of, if we think that the business, with the exception of the left back, is broadly speaking over, will define exactly how will Liverpool do this campaign.
I think if you look back over the last 2 years, maybe even longer, the biggest problem that Liverpool have had is having home games where we score either 0 or 1 goal. And we've had so many of those across that period that you're going to drop a ton of points at home in the league. And I can remember even last year under Rodgers, even in the pre-season friendlies, we'd be playing teams where the opposition was obviously inferior to the team that Liverpool were putting out, even if it wasn't a full-strength team. And we'd have all of the possession, the other team couldn't get a kick. But I remember watching it and thinking, we're having all of the ball, but we don't create any chances. Like the two wide attackers are hugging the touchline; they're not making the runs into the box, and that has been a problem that's gone on for more than 2 years. But for the last sort of 4 or 5 months, it's kind of been rectified. We've actually started scoring goals at home. We started scoring goals away as well, and we've been pretty free scoring since Christmas. But of course, the caveat to that is that Sturridge has also come back in that time. So I don't really know how much of it is because, now we've got a player who remembers that you've actually got to stand in the area and kick the ball in the goal.
I think this is Joe's shout there. I mean, if you look back from when Klopp first came in, the run of games before Klopp came in, there was a lot of 1-1 draws at the end of Brendan Rodgers'
5 in the last 6.
5 in the last 6, and then you go forward and you look at after Klopp's come in. For instance, there's a 1-1 at home to Southampton. We get beat by Crystal Palace 2-1. We beat Swansea 1-0. You move right the way forward through this. It's Origi's late goal against West Brom that stops that from being a 2-2 draw to a 2-1, and it wasn't quite clear where the goals are coming from. The West Brom actually opener is Henderson making that third man run where Lallana nods it back and Henderson's there sort of 6 yards out, which you think is the sort of stuff that the manager wants. But then, for instance, Stoke and West Ham at home back to back in January, we don't score from open play, John. It is as though he's sort of in quite a almost elementary way, quite a basic sort of this is something that if we can do all this and all this can be fine, but without the lads who have the instinct to do the next thing, we're going to get stuck into some of these traps.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a kind of basic way of solving it, isn't it? I mean, I kind of worry when football's put in that way, really, where you think, well, we'll add his goals and his goals and his goals all together, and that's 80, and then we're in a good position, and it doesn't really work like that. It's not baseball. You're not just judging them all on their individual kind of scores. Really, that was a local reference for you there, Neil, like that.
Cheers, still don't understand what those scores are.
We were trying to watch baseball in about the other night, very confused. But anyway, but it's not that. You know what I mean? It's not like adding numbers together and getting there. I think you're right to say Marnie will probably get 10 next year, but what I'm more interested in, okay, well, where is he when we're having about 15 minutes? What's he doing there? Is he looking to get involved in the play? Is he looking to track back? I'm not saying he can't do these things. I'm just saying that's what I'm interested in. Where are these lads when the going gets tough? And I think if you fill your team full of too many players who are explosive, who are there to get there at the right time, who might have a quiet 20 minutes but have a big 5. There's time and a place for those players, and they can be really effective. But if your team's full of them, then what if they all have the quiet 20 minutes at the same time? You know what I mean?
Palace.
Exactly. And so it's a little bit of a worry for me that you can obsess over. Okay, well, he's the guy who gets you 10, but if that's all he does. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the case with Wijnaldum. I'm sure there's little things they can do, and I've actually been impressed with Mane in the pre-season. I've been kind of watching quite closely in terms of his position on the football pitch and how much he demands the ball and things like that, because that's what kind of is just as important for me, the numbers he ends up with, because as I say, it's not just a case of adding all the goals up together and seeing how it goes. Football doesn't really work like that. There's times when you've just got to kind of, you've got to be a bit of a scrapper or something, or there's times where you can't just be the guy who says, well I'll leave that to them and I'll be the one who finishes it off and puts it in, because if they're all looking at each other like that, then you can get in a bit of trouble.
Don't you think we've almost had, if I say too many scrappers, that's going to be the wrong way to phrase it, but we've, those times when I was watching us at home last season, in a few games where there's, if you've got Lallana, Coutinho, Milner, Shan.
No, it's a balance. I know what you're saying. And sometimes they can be all looking around to each other for inspiration, going, well, who's going to be the guy? Who's going to be the one with the spark? And they're passing to each other and looking. And it's too often falls down to Coutinho, and then Coutinho ends up landing a shot from 30 yards and it goes over the bar, and we kind of get frustrated. And I think there is a balance. There is a balance that needs to be there, and that's the role of the football manager, I suppose, is the role of football managers is to get enough individuals who complement each other, who can get us towards an effective football team, and I'm sure he's thinking about that, and I'm sure he's looked at it, and because he's talked about it in terms of what is this team missing, and I think that's what he's gone out there and tried to do. I still hope he buys a left back.
Has Wijnaldum played defensive midfielder for Holland?
He's played apparently for Holland in a more central midfield kind of role. Whether he'll be able to do that, I won't be surprised if he plays more 4-3-3 next season. I think he's done that quite a bit in the pre-season. I won't be surprised if you end up with one sitting. Then it becomes a case of who it is. You know, it'd probably be Shan, and then there's two attacking midfielders in front of him, and I think there'll be a lot of expectation on those in terms of to do the kind of thing that we've all been talking about, getting forward, getting goals, and out, and then you look to play the likes of Mane and another guy, maybe Firmino, kind of a little bit narrower, if you like, and a bit more self forward. And I think it wouldn't surprise me if we see a little bit of that next season, and you've got two guys ahead of one, and it really is, you know, you've seen what Grujic has done this season. It really, you know, you're just bombing forward, lads. You know what I mean? You just, you know, you've obviously got to get back and you've got to be box to box. But really, you know, if you're not in the box when the crosses has been in, then you're doing something wrong.
I think that there's a chance of that.
I would certainly do that.
Well, I think there's a chance of that, Colin. I think that the other thing that I think you're going to see a lot of is I wonder about, you know, at the minute I think as football supporters we think first 11, whereas the other thing that he's put out very, very clearly in this string of interviews in the Echo is the idea that it's not first 11, is that, you know, he wants players to grab their chance in the team, but he wants to know that, you know, it's some sort of combination of fitness, and fitness is both mental and physical, that if someone goes a little bit off the boil, you know, he said it's not a case of someone misses a shot, but it's a case of someone, you know, if someone's just not quite playing where they, you know, at the level that if they're not able to sustain that level, he wants to be able to change it. And I think we might get hung up on what the first side is against Arsenal and think, well, that's what the side will be the first week of April. Whereas there's every chance, isn't it, that he's very much going to be chopping and changing and both rotating and also sort of feeling as though he's dropping people if they become blunted, to get them back sharp.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the case. You know, we're going to have a slightly smaller squad, it looks like. But by the same token, we've got a lot fewer games coming up this season. So you could expect somebody to maybe get running the team of 3 or 4 games. It may be 3 games in one position, and then the 4th game there in a little, you know, in a position that maybe requires a little bit less kind of physical or mental kind of, you know, focus there. And then they drop out of the team for a couple of games. And then the question then is the balance and getting the players on the field who complement each other, because it's okay having Mane coming in and scoring 8 to 10 goals, but if he's doing that at the detriment of Coutinho getting goals, because Coutinho's looking to pass instead of looking to shoot from the edge of the box, which is, you know, where he gets his success from, then we may just simply be redistributing where our regular number of goals come from. So it could be a case of, you know, we'll look at these 2 or 3 players together in a group and say, you will work well together, we'll play you for 3 or 4 games in a row. And it could be like almost like going to come with an American thing for you, a hockey line change.
Oh, hello.
Take 3 out, put 3 other guys in who've got different capabilities, different styles, but if those 3 work well together, you could see them have a run of games together. And it could be 2 or 3 players who work particularly well with Sturridge, they get a run of games, 1 or 2 of them drop off the boil a little bit, so we replace 1 or 2 of them and change the forward. And the key is going to be how well we can manage all these attacking players and get them complementing each other without being detrimental to the other attacking players in that group at that time.
You've seen him do that actually to a certain extent, what Cole's describing there, Joe, for instance. It got to the point last season where he clearly gone, I'm not going to bother putting Firmino and Benteke in the same side. There's very little point. That's, you know, they're making each other worse at football. It was what was actively happening. Yeah. So, you know, it may well be that there's certainly beginnings of thought processes, but there may also be that the manager's looking at, for instance, we start to see, you know, John's mentioned 4-3-3. It may be that 4-3-3 might be the solution to Arsenal, Burnley and Spurs, but that might not be the solution to Leicester, Chelsea and Hull. But he's got these quite sort of, again, without the distractions of the European football, he's got these quite defined blocks of football matches where he can that he can work his way through.
Yeah, there was the Stoke game last season, wasn't it? Was it 4-1, 4-0 against Stoke at home? Where I think the second half it was Origi, Sturridge and Firmino all playing. Almost really, like 3 up front. Really 3 up front. And what I was pleased about with that is, obviously you're not going to play that every game, but what I was pleased with that was that he tried it, and he's obviously seen that that's one alternative in certain games to kind of to do that. And I think you'd have to expect that he's probably going to try different tactics and different lineups depending on the opposition, right? I think that's the one thing we've missed is we've had a couple of years of like 4-3-3 every week, and you get some solidity in certain games, but it's almost like we've had for a couple of years not solid enough against the stronger teams, and then too solid against the weaker teams.
The other thing as well, John, just to sort of bring this to a conclusion, why it is quite interesting, is that there's another option here. We're talking sort of about changes in blocks of games or game to game. One of the things that you felt you began to see towards the end of the season, last season, as players came back fit, was the manager having actual genuine options on the bench in terms of being able to keep a level of intensity up across a full 90 minutes. Yeah. And I do wonder if if his ideal non-injury based substitutions will become, if 4 of the 4 attackers of the 4 more defined attacker players, 2 or 3 of them are the ones who you'll see be told effectively they're getting 60-70 minutes, and they're getting pulled out to be replaced by, for instance, Wijnaldum if you're chasing the game, or maybe maybe Milner if you're not, if you know what I mean, if you feel as though you're ahead and you're comfortable. But having those sorts of options to do that sort of thing is one of the places I think he's going to want to go.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got those options now, but I think he will be a bit horses for courses next season in terms of starting in different. I think you're very right to point out that the team away at Arsenal is likely to be very different. So I wouldn't surprise if there's 5 changes by the time we play Leicester at home. You know what I mean? In terms of, I think he's looking at it both in terms of who's going to be available at different times. I think he's going to be careful with some of the guys coming back, although a lot of them weren't back as late as what they could have been. But I think he'll be a bit horse of courses in terms of that. But also generally, I think he'll look at certain games and think, well, who are the best options for this style of team? And I think Cole's right to point out in terms of, he might well go for guys that runs the games and 3 and 4 and use them and bring in and out. But also, I also imagine he'll be looking at who we're playing and think, well, what's the suitability? And also from the bench, okay, well, who's actually going to give me the last 20 minutes? And that's where someone like Danny Ings might come in, who we haven't really been talking about too much, and has been kind of in the reserves, if you like, that second half team that no one really wants to be in, crossing the ball for Shamal George. Kind of no one really wants to be, but he's kind of been in that team. But I don't think that necessarily means that he's not thinking about Danny Ings. It maybe just he's thinking about him in a different sort of way and thinking, well, actually, if I'm looking for one up front, it probably isn't Ings. He's probably behind Sturridge or Region Firmino there. And if I'm looking for wide, really do want to be starting him in a wide position, do want him to be playing a full 90 there, where he might have to be up and down, he might have to do bits of defensive work and there's things to get through. But last 20, if we need a goal and we got and the opposition's deep and the opposition's kind of getting deeper and deeper, and Marnie's run himself into the ground for 70 minutes and now he's not getting any space. We'll throw Ings up there for wide right and he can get on the end or something, and he doesn't necessarily have to be worrying about helping his fullback anymore because there's 20 minutes to go and things like that. So I think he'll be looking at the players in terms of things like that, and it wouldn't surprise me if you see a few specialists next season, if you see a few of those, Manchester United, had them with Park, didn't they? Park played 8 games a season and he knew exactly which ones they were going to be. Do you know what I mean? And I wouldn't surprise me if you see a few of those next season. You might even end up doing a little bit with Benteke, who knows?
There's something in this as well, Colin, which is that I think the way in which the games came, I'm intrigued by how he sort of perceived last season, because I think the way in which the language he used around certain aspects of what traditions within English football changed over the course of the campaign. It became every game is important to the next one, was what he was saying in October. By February, when we were going away from home against West Ham in a cup replay, it was, I've got a responsibility to look at other games. I think the intensity of it, both in terms of the number of games, the way in which they come thick and fast, I think that caught him unawares. And I think that English football is, broadly speaking, whilst German football's quick, English football is more intense. It's possibly the most intense time there's been for English football. This at the moment, where you've got 8 or 9 sides who are all really quite good, but very few of them absolutely terrific and are going to run away with anything. So do you think he's also just constantly thinking, how can I get Liverpool to be as intense as they were against, say, Villarreal at home every single game? Because I think that's the big. I think if he was to sit here and be honest with you, you'd say, what are your biggest problems? What do you want to solve? I think his number one would be how to have 38 cup finals. I want them to play like it's 38 cup finals. And I think if you look at the transfer business in that context, it makes it. You can see exactly what it is they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, from a technical profile, the players we've brought in kind of seem to fit that mould. The big problem is, can we garner that mentality game after game after game? Realistically, Hull at home is far less glamorous than going to Old Trafford. What can you get the players believing that every game is a cup final? Can you get them kind of seeing the prize at the end of, well, you know what, our target this year is it top 4, is it top 2, is it a title challenge, whatever it may be, whatever kind of they figure out there and whatever they see as the end game. Can we get the players buying into the fact that every single game, regardless of who we're playing against or whether we're at home or away, is as important towards reaching that goal as every other game? I think last season, you mentioned that Klopp was probably a little bit surprised by the intensity of the league itself and by how quickly the games came. I mean, he made comments around kind of Christmas and New Year, just how little kind of rest and preparation time they got from one game to the next. And I think after that, as it started to settle down, we'd see performances that were really good, but then we needed that little bit extra off the bench and we didn't have it. And he's looking around and he's bringing on Joe Allen, who he clearly doesn't, or he seems to rate him as a footballer, but as somebody who's going to make a difference in the final third and get you over the line, it doesn't look like A, Allen's necessarily capable of it, or B, it doesn't seem that Klopp sees him as the answer to that. So again, it's back to the rotation. It's back to the earmarking certain players for certain roles. It could be, like John's saying there, the Danny Ings. If you tell Danny Ings that this next 20 minutes is his cup final, he'll buy into it. He'll run. Yeah. You tell Benteke this next 20 minutes is his cup final, he won't. He won't have his socks pulled up. He won't have his shin pads on, ready to get off the bench, will he?
But this is Joe. This is the cup final thing. I think this is you look at the way in which Leicester's season effectively boiled down last campaign, and it made their decisions for them. You know what I mean? Yeah. They were just. It was every single week. This is the next 90 minutes is the most important 90 minutes of your life. Yeah. And then the one that follows it is the most important 90 minutes of your life. That one's now in second place, and the one before that's now in third place because the results keep coming for us. And I think that's where. But you only get in those positions in the first half of the season. That's where you manage to that becomes easy. That's the easy bit. Yeah. The hard bit is sort of manoeuvring them in, and that's where I think if you build a squad based around constant intensity, then as I say, I think that's what we're seeing. I think that defines every purchase more than anything else.
Well, we kind of saw it with the Villarreal game, the second leg. That was when I kind of first saw that and thought, so that's what he means by heavy metal football. Because it was incredibly physical, it was smothering of the other team. But the first thing I thought when after the Villarreal game is I thought, well, you can't play like that every week because half the team's going to get injured after 2 or 3 games. But that might be the plan. We were talking yesterday about it, that maybe Klopp's got this strategy that we could almost play more physically than you would otherwise think is safe, as long as you've got extra players and fewer games. That maybe you give yourself a few more injuries, but it allows you to play in that heavy metal style, whatever you want to call it. That is kind of almost, you don't. Villarreal obviously had never played against a team in an environment like that. Like they just had no response to it, and you just wonder whether, going forward, whether he's looking to almost just play at like a level of physicality that is something that we've not seen before, and maybe that's why we've got extra players, 7 attacking midfielders.
Yeah, I mean the extra games is going to help in terms of, they're not having the extra games is going to help in terms of intensity. It'll be trickier for them in terms of keeping guys happy, and we talked about the size of the squad at the moment and just keeping guys fresh. And when it becomes a little bit tricky is when someone's not played for a month and then suddenly you want them to start. And we've talked about being horses for courses, but if the guy hasn't had much action, then he can he come in and play to that intensity that we want him to. I think that's when it gets a little bit more tricky too. So squad rotation kind of changes. I think the less games you've got, but there's still challenges there about how do we make sure everyone's happy-ish. People at footballers are never happy if they're not playing, but how do I say to them, you need to be ready. You need to be ready for when I need you, and I'm kind of ensure they are. There's kind of challenges there really that he will have to face, and then also about the young players, about keeping them involved and keeping them hungry and keeping them taking under 21 football maybe seriously if that's what they're playing, and saying, you know, you do have a future, you do have something, a part to play in this season. It just isn't right now, and so they're the challenges for Klopp really. But I mean, there'll be things that he's thinking about already, and he's already said as well that he thinks the squad's too big anyway. So he's got 300 players, did he say?
Yeah.
I don't think it is that many.
No, I don't think it is.
But, I'm just trying to still learn names.
I haven't counted them. And maybe he has, maybe he's put the hard yards in. I mean, it is worth pointing out, you know, Colin, now we're sitting here, we think Brad Smith's going to go to Bournemouth for £6 million, which is really nice of them. We think that Joe Allen's going to go to Stoke for £13 million, which is about what we all felt that Joe Allen would go for. There's still Benteke, there's still Balotelli. But I don't think, maybe you might disagree, but I don't think there's going to be any surprises, is there, in terms of the exits. I think we could probably sit here now and sort of name Liverpool's 2021 players going into next season. It's how successful they are at actually getting rid of people like Benteke and Balotelli more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about surprises. I think getting £15 million for Jordan Ibe came as a surprise to absolutely everyone.
Yeah.
And the same with with Brad Smith, £6 million there. We seem to be improving a lot at getting rid of players that we don't want. You know, for years on end, it seemed that other teams of our kind of level have been able to get rid of the deadwood and make kind of 2 million, 3 million, 4 million profit on each one of them, whereas we are kind of giving them away and paying some of the wages, and we're still losing money on them even when we don't bloody own them anymore. So, with regards to the people still left to go, you know, Smith, Benteke, probably Balotelli, hopefully Joe Allen will go. Will there be any more surprises? I'm not sure. Maybe Lucas.
Lucas is one where, you know, there was talk that he may well be find himself getting moved on.
Yeah.
The manager's used Kev Stewart a lot in these friendlies and looks, you know, like he's happy to use Stewart as backup to what we think will be Chan, but Lucas is the interesting one.
Yeah, and then, you know, you look at the fullback areas, and that's an interesting one. Nobody's mentioned us potentially bringing in a right back, but at the same time, if Flanagan goes on loan, we still only have Klein and Moreno for the fullback positions. We're obviously after a left back, but then who is cover at right back? Is it Milner? Is it Wisdom? I hope not. Is it Ilori? I think he could well be sold this window as well.
Is it Alexander-Arnold? Might he think that's his way into the team, or is he just so secure in Klein's form and fitness that he sort of feels well? I think Klein's almost the hardest one of those two to back up. Moreno, it makes complete sense. You could easily say, well, you want to get a more solid full back, you want someone maybe 6'2", 6'3".
Gomez as well.
Does that sort of stuff. Whereas I think that maybe it's Gomez as well for both sides. Possibly thinks that's how he'll get Gomez on there, Cole. But you do think that Klein, because Klein's, and I mean this is a compliment, so very 7 out of 10, it becomes quite difficult to sort of go, well, if we can have one who does a bit more of this, because Klein more and more looks as though he can maybe do a bit more of everything. You might want a bit more from him attackingly, but then maybe you do think, well, we choose Milner.
Yeah, I think we might see, if we don't sign anybody, I think we might see Milner at right back in, those home games where we're looking to kind of, really, really put the pressure on the opposition. And it seems strange to say, given that some of Klein's strength and main kind of positives are his ability to get up and support the attack in that second wave. His final ball's not the greatest, but he'll put himself in a position to deliver 6, 7, 8 balls, across the length of a game. And if the movement in the box is good enough, then hopefully we can make something of it. Like you say, he's very rarely injured. He's 7 or 8 out of 10, both sides of the ball, both directions, every single game he plays. Leaving aside the one game last year, was it the United game where he got
Martial made it.
Yeah, Martial kind of took him to the cleaners, brought him home and took him back there again. But apart from that was the first really kind of bad game he's had. He's just been solid and occasionally very, very good. But then to rely on his fitness, I think would not be the most sensible of choices. We could put Milner in there for some games,
but not.
But yeah, if he blows his knee out, do you want Milner in there for 25 games?
Yeah.
No, you don't. And do you want to trust the kids to go in there and do the job? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. We're not too sure. But either way, dropping a kid in there for 3 or 4 games and saying, you know what, go and have a run at it. You've got nothing to lose. Suddenly becomes go and get your boots on, you're our first choice right back for 20 games, that's a whole different proposition, and then the mental side of the game then takes over, and sink or swim. If they sink, you're in a lot of trouble because we've only got one right back and he's broken.
It is interesting, isn't it, right back really? That does remain, for all you're saying that you want another left back, and I can completely understand why. Right back does remain a bit of a, it might be that Gomez, he fancies Gomez there or Milner, but it's not clear, is it, at the moment?
Yeah, we don't really know what's going on with Gomez, do we, in terms of his injury, how serious it is. It feels like it's quite serious because they bought a centre-half as soon as he got injured. There's a bit of talk that this new centre-half could play full-back, but he doesn't look like a full-back to me. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. I mean, I don't know. He looked. I mean, Martin Scale had to go full-back, didn't he? But it didn't go very well. And I think he just doesn't look like he's kind of got the pace. He's kind of a big brute, isn't he? But it just depends how much space they've got. I think Klein's great because his recovery time seems really good. He's one that seemed to me he could play every 2-3 days last season, and his form didn't seem to drop too much, and so some guys don't tend to kind of pick up knocks, but then you can't just rely on that because anyone can get a terrible tackle and anyone can have a kind of an accident on the pitch or whatever, and then you're struggling. So I just maybe just feels to me like it's one where they think they might be able to get away with it. And I think for a lot of football clubs who haven't got unlimited resources or just generally, you've got the balance between, well, do you want to go and get a fullback who's not really going to play it, and then he's going to be kind of maybe complaining or maybe being unhappy. And I think he's just looked at it and thought between Trent, who they obviously really like, Trent Alexander-Arnold, who they really like, between Milner, who can fill in there and do a pretty good job, between hopefully Gomez coming back, and I think you just feel through a combination of things that they'll just about be all right there, and I think they've got to that. They've got to that decision where there's left back. Obviously, there's doubts over Moreno, but anyway, it just feels like a little bit more of a specialist position to me. I mean, would you want Milner filling out left back? You probably wouldn't. Gomez has done a bit there and done all right, but I think it does feel like a little bit more of a specialist position to me, and I think that's why they'll definitely end up getting one, even without the. We don't know what he thinks of Alberto Moreno. His opinion is probably higher than Liverpool fans because it could be much lower. But even with that, I think that's what they'll definitely go for someone. I think they'll probably just make do it right back with what they have.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think it's probably they don't want to go and spend $5 million on a right back and then Klein doesn't get injured for 3 years. Then they're like, well, why did we do that? Because we're never going to use him. And maybe Klopp mentioned Trent Alexander-Arnold, didn't he? In one of the pieces in the Echo. So and also the thing about Milner is probably the best thing we've had from Milner since we got him is his delivery of the ball into the box, which may be a reason to kind of stick him out there as a way to get him in the team, especially if we've got a region players like that getting into the box.
Or you're at Anfield, there's 20 to go, you think you're all over them, it's still 0-0, it's 1-1, it's whatever it is, you want to turn the screw.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, that's the football talk. Well, it's the Liverpool part. I want to have a little chat about sort of Liverpool coming over to the United States. That's why we're here. We've got an event in Los Angeles at the Garage on Tuesday night. Please come if you're in the area on that evening. Tuesday night. There's still some tickets left, but they are actually going faster and faster. So please do that. We'll tweet the link out. If you just go on the Anfield app Twitter, you'll see that all the time. But it's through C Tickets. And then on the Saturday, we're in San Francisco at the Fog on the Dog. John?
Mad Dog in the Fog.
Mad Dog in the Fog. I cannot get that in my head, no matter how many times people tell me.
As long as we find it.
Yeah, that's the most important part. And we're up there in San Francisco before Liverpool play Milan across these two friendlies. Really looking forward to the friendlies as well. So if you want to come down to them, please come and see us. We'll be doing all that sort of stuff. But we're in the United States, and it's interesting the way in which the game sort of has changed in the United States, Joe. Really, does this one feel to you like there's a lot more? Is this time or the last couple of times Liverpool have been over in the States, have you felt as though sort of football is much more in the American mindset than it's been before?
Yeah, it's a bit difficult because we all kind of live in this bubble where because we communicate online and we kind of follow the news that we want to follow, so it feels like a big deal when Liverpool came to Boston and those places, because all the people that you kind of interact with are making a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
But then it's hard to know if you were outside of that little communication bubble whether you'd even notice it. But I think it's more of I think it's a slow process of change that's definitely happening, but it's kind of happening by itself, just organically over time. And in America they've had a long storied history of trying to force soccer to become popular. And I don't think that's ever worked in terms of them trying to manufacture that enthusiasm for the game, because you can't really manufacture that. It's something that happens organically, in European countries especially. That's something that's happened over 100 years. No one forced football to become popular in Europe. But the reason I think it's happening in America is, like I say, it's a slow process. It's happening by itself, and I think it's a combination of things really, like kind of mass scale immigration into America of people from Latin America and other parts of the world, and also just that we're a more integrated world now than we used to be. So people are more exposed to things that happen in other countries. It's probably true. I mean, you guys could tell me that American football seems to be quite popular in the UK as well.
Yeah, it's growing. Yeah.
And I think that's probably a similar thing that's happening because people just get more exposure to it. But a good example is my wife and her family have lived here in Southern California for a long time, and they lived here in LA when the World Cup final was here in '94, and none of them were aware that it even happened. Like, I've asked my father-in-law, do you remember when the World Cup was here in LA? And he's like, no idea.
Was the final here as well?
I think the final was here, yeah.
The Rose Bowl,
yeah. But if you compare that with now, I moved to America 10 years ago, and I was here for the 2006 World Cup, and that was I really noticed then. Like, I can remember even just watching like late night talk shows, Letterman or Jay Leno or whoever would start talking about the World Cup in their in their monologues that they would do in the evening, and that was a real sign of it kind of coming into the popular consciousness. And since then, it's got more and more kind of popular and more interest in it, to the point where at the last World Cup, because USA did pretty well in the last World Cup as well, all things considered, and it got to the point when they got to the knockout stages, it was almost like being in like southern England or somewhere, where the whole country would come to a standstill. People were cramming into bars to watch it, and it was like, I think it also got higher viewing figures for the USA games here on TV than the World Series did, which kind of tells you a lot.
Well, there was more. I mean, we were out in Brazil for the World Cup in America, and there was so many Americans there. Apparently, there was the best supported country of the World Cup.
Yeah.
And you talk about the immigration thing, which is, which I'm sure is a factor. But out in Brazil, it was a real range of different kind of people and different ages, and people just were there to support America, and so I found that quite interesting. Really, obviously the ones who got into it have really kind of embraced it.
Yeah.
There's Colin, you coach over there, don't you?
Yeah.
So you yourself must be observing it sort of on a almost turn by turn basis, on a 3 month cycles almost. Do you feel as though the game's getting more and more attention over here?
Yeah, it's a strange one, because as well as considering the kind of US-based demographics of Americans who are buying into MLS or buying into the US national team, we're in an area here, Southern California, where there is an enormous Hispanic population, Mexican, Brazilian, general kind of soccer hotbeds are all around this place, and millions of people watch, Liga MX and things like that. And then you've got the immigration side of it that we've already mentioned there. Lots of Europeans coming in, and the Premier League with all the money there, NBC showing all the games. And
do you think the NBC thing's a big deal? Do you think it's having an impact as well?
Absolutely, yeah. You know what? It's been tough over here over the past few years, kind of before NBC. Being able to kind of catch the games and still feel involved in it when you're on the other side of the world, and you're 8 hours behind when the game's at 4:30 in the morning. You're waking up trying to find a stream on the internet, and your life feels absolutely horrible. And now NBC comes along and you can put it on in HD and just sit back on your couch with a brew, and everything's good.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that there's still a bit of a disconnect between the kind of American soccer population and the kind of foreign soccer population, and I do the air quotes there, because with that I include Mexicans, Brazilians, Argentinians who are kind of focusing on their league, and then everybody who's supporting the European teams, looking out for those results and those performances over here. And I think there's still a lot of work needs to be done to kind of marry the two together until it's genuinely a kind of full-on global sport within America. and we need to kind of break down the boundaries between an American-based soccer population and a football population, and the sooner we can get those two kind of married together, the better.
TV does play a massive part, and it was interesting Joe mentioned American football in the UK before, because something that's worked really well for American football is it's on when there's not much sport on.
Yeah.
So Sunday night you settle down, if you want to watch sports on a Sunday night, which is actually quite a nice time to watch sport, there's nothing else on, and American football's got a nice pace for a Sunday night as well. You can kind of dip in and out of it, you know, if you're looking to do a bit of work to get ahead on a Monday, because Neil's got you booked in 6 shows. You know, it's actually got quite a nice little pace to it. You know, you just kind of look up every now and again if you go to the toilet and come back, and it doesn't really matter. And so that's kind of why I've got into American football. I like watching American football, and I kind of follow it a little bit because of when it's on, and because it's on Sky, and the coverage is really good as well. The coverage is fantastic.
So is that having an inverse effect with reference to the NBC stuff, because it's all Saturday morning for America, you know what I mean? So it's no matter whichever time zone, Joe. So therefore, is that a positive? Because it's basically, well, there's nothing else on. This is the time, and as we know, Saturday morning's a nice time to watch football as well.
4:30 a.m. is not a nice time to watch football.
I'll give you that.
We went more than 11.
But do you think that's having an impact there? Because that's just there's no clear competition. You just put the Premier League football on there on NBC, and everyone can just relax and watch it if that's what they're into.
Yeah, you know, the biggest sign is that exactly that is happening is that. So basically, for anyone that doesn't know, NBC and their affiliates show every single Premier League game live in full in HD. That's all 380 games, which means if you support Burnley and you live in the US, you can watch all 38 games live in HD, which is crazy. But the thing that shows that what you're suggesting is correct about the time of the games is that they're now putting the games on the actual NBC terrestrial channel, the actual network of NBC, not just NBC Sports or CNBC or one of the overflow channels, but the prime time main network channel is showing the Premier League. And one of the main reasons for that is because, like you say, it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. They're not going to get anything that maybe guarantees them like a couple of million viewers. It's a guarantee, so it's a no-brainer for them to do it. And I think when another thing about the NBC thing was it's almost like an indicator as well, because when they got the rights to the Premier League off Fox, because Fox had it for a while, didn't they? I think they do a blind auction for the TV rights, so you don't know what everyone else is bidding for them.
Right.
And I think Fox was hoping to keep the rights because they'd had them for a few years, and they put a bid into the blind auction, and it turned out that, I could be wrong on this, I think this is what it is, you can check it, the NBC bid was double what the Fox bid was. It was like they just decided we're not messing around anymore, we're going to go full on the Premier League because it's a massive ratings winner, and they market it really heavily, don't they, in all of the different channels and all the other sports. It's kind of everywhere, and you see like billboards for it and all that kind of thing. So yeah, the NBC thing has been huge, both as like a cause and an indicator of it.
We'll see with these friendlies, Carl, these 2 games, or 3 games across we're not going to the third one, sadly, so it doesn't exist. These games that are happening in the States, you'll see that. I think there is still, in terms of the attendance, I think there's still, I've seen some sort of stuff around MLS, and there was some nonsense stuff in the New York Times as well, but in general I think one of the things that's difficult in the United States is to replicate that match going experience, and that's going to be one of the challenges, isn't it, that intensity of rivalries and all that sort of stuff, and getting that over. It's quite difficult to do with just some pre-season friendlies.
With pre-season friendlies, you will get the attendances, you'll get people there, you'll get the kind of US event on the day, you know, the tailgating, everyone out in the car parks, in the parking lot, you know, with barbecues and stuff like that, and everyone kind of
tailgating, by the way.
Oh yeah,
I think it's my scene, possibly. Yeah,
I think I like it, mate.
Yeah,
Get some hot dogs.
oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
okay.
But you know, over here, even at the lower levels, attendances are starting to increase. You know, I coached a team in the 4th division. There were some playoff games yesterday. One of the 4th division teams, Chattanooga, they regularly get over 10,000 fans at every single home game.
Yeah.
You know, it's building, it's growing, and this kind of stuff, you know, these kind of friendlies are just going to help it.
Okay then, all fascinating stuff. Thank you very much indeed to Joe and Colin for coming to see us on this very warm Sunday lunchtime when you could well have other things to do. Thank you very much to John as well. Obviously you'd be sitting here and he's just doing it, aren't you?
I didn't have any choice.
No, not at all. So we will potter back around Los Angeles. Do come and see us on Tuesday night if you're around. We'd really like it if you could, if you fancied it, and you know, we'll be around on the game on Wednesday as well. So there's lots and lots going on. There's lots and lots that's happening around Liverpool coming over to Los Angeles. But yeah, huge thank you to everyone here, and that is the Anfield wrap.